just go live then. Going live. Hello, long time since we've done one of these. So my phone just said rotate your screen landscape, and I realized I had landscape lock on, hit it, and it just went live while it was in my hand. So lucky nobody was here to witness that little debacle.
Okay.
So we're going to wait and say good morning to you all. Good morning, and it is morning for us. We woke a little late this morning, had a little bit of our Indian breakfast.
It was very nice.
And really today, I know I'm saying happy 2020 because I haven't done a live stream in January, so a bit cheeky really, but happy New Year. I know it's belated, but it was meant at the beginning of the year. And happy New Year anyway. There's a few things we just wanted to update everybody on what we're doing, because we haven't done many live streams in India, maybe not even any live streams in India.
One, I think, in Mysore, didn't we?
Right, but we've had problems with the connection speeds and getting good pictures. So this really is just questions and answers. Hello everybody, a few little stories we want to share with you of what's been going on. We're in South India still. Our videos are pretty up to date now. What you're watching is quite close to where we are, so that's always nice. Excuse me.
A little slab of water with a little bottle.
I didn't realise that I was so dry until we started there. So it's been an interesting few weeks, a very interesting few weeks, and there's some videos. I'll talk about the arrested thing in a moment. That was last week. So we'll talk about that, some little issues that happened. One very nice thing that happened actually is just the day before yesterday, I had a message from one of you, and it said, Steve, we've been loving, because we're never sure if people are really enjoying them. And it said, yeah, Steve, we've absolutely, I've absolutely lived vicariously through your traveling through India, love it, and I wanted to send you some money for you, Michelle, and you to have a meal. So that was really, I think the first time that's ever happened. So that was really sweet.
Really
so
nice.
Thank you. I won't say who it was at the moment, because I'm probably going to do a little video when we go out and have a meal, and it won't be for some time. We're going to wait until we're in a spot where we're really comfortable. But yeah, they sent through PayPal. Thank you very much. That means a great deal to us. It was sweet, and also the Patreons that still support us on Patreon. That obviously means a great deal to us. But it was just a nice blast just to receive that. And they sent some message through. I think it's I can put the PayPal link for those of you that care. It's PayPal.me. Anyways, thanks, Steve. So that was nice. You know who you are. Thank you very much. We will be going out and having a lovely meal, but we're not going to do it yet. We want to wait until we're in the right spot. It might be a little while yet before we do that, and we'll talk about it then. So thank you. And thank you to any patrons that are still following us. That's always sweet. And just thank you for everybody for continuing to watch the videos. It's been a hard transition from doing the cooking videos to doing the travel videos. We lost a big audience. We're not too bothered.
Okay, Moon over Miami says low audio, had to turn up the sound to super high. So is anybody else?
I'm not sure if that would be right, because I've done it on this phone so many times. So let's just check, Mom. I call Moon over Miami Mom, as the American sort of Mom pronunciation.
And Byron's there. He's been super busy lately.
Byron, love you, mate.
Does the sound look good for you, Byron? Just so we can check.
Yeah, if you could just check the sound. It could be on your side, Moons, because generally this phone has never had a hiccup with volume quantity. Let's just check that though with others. So Moms, you've been following us. Thank you very much. We've got all the regulars that come in. Byron, there's many of you out there, many names that I could say, but if you pop in, say hello, we will. Thank you. Michelle and I are basically traveling all the way down to the south of India. We've actually been into the south of India and just started to creep up the other side. We've done some videos. We almost got arrested. it was a bit, I wish we'd filmed it in a way, because we were dodging through alleyways trying to get away from the authorities. I wanted to get some drone footage, and I'd spoken with the hotelier about putting the drone up, because we weren't sure what the rules and regulations, and he said, no, it's fine, yeah, you just put the drone up. So we put the drone up, and we were getting some lovely sort of video footage, which I'll use in a video maybe in the next couple of weeks. We'd had it up there and been, I think, some pretty awesome footage. Yeah, it looked good through from our side. And then as it came down, a walkie-talkie and a badge came over, all sort of flustered and annoyed. So he's getting all sort of like, you haven't got authority to fly your drone. And I'm going, well, I blagged it a little bit, and I'm calling. He's got his walkie-talkie. He's calling the police.
What's our passports?
Wants our passports to keep up. We're going to get arrested. All this nonsense. Probably after a backhander, but anyway. So we just thought, I'm not dealing with this idiot. We'll walk away. Grabbed hold of my shoulder. So I grabbed my camera out and I said, okay, touch me again and see what happens. So then he sort of backed off. And Michelle and I just walked off, and we sort of vanished into a crowd of people, and were very wary that we were being sort of pursued by these sort of like angry badges. And eventually we lost them. It is a chaotic town. There was no way, if they'd called the police, probably would have taken about 3 hours to get there. But it was a little bit hair raising, so we got some nice drone footage. I think there are some regulations here. You've got to be careful when you're flying that drone. Many countries, the drone's almost been just a heavy appendage to carry around with us, because many of the countries you go to now, there's so many rules and regulations. You can't take them in some countries. They'll take them off you. It can be a pain. So yes, we could have been arrested getting drone footage for you. The drone footage is amazing, by the way. It's a pilgrimage. We were there just a few days back. It's a pilgrimage where people are actually crawling on their hands and knees up to a church where there's been some miracles that have happened. And I wanted to get the drone up because the environment was so good. Is the picture good, by the way? Even on my side, it's a little bit juddery.
It looks okay. Mine, I think. I'm not sure. We've got people from all over the place. We've got Wana Kiandi from Thailand, Malaysia. Have a good day.
The internet's died there, Michelle, or is it just on my
side? And Fabian says hi from Uruguay.
What was the one? Have a good day.
Nancy Anna from Malaysia.
From Malaysia.
And Fabian says hi from Uruguay.
Uruguay, I'm not sure. Malaysia, I want to say, my languages. I'll be saying Dankeschön.
We'll get them mixed up. And
And
James McLean says yes, so I assume that's the picture's good. Thank you, James.
Was the sound okay? Just say sound. If the sound okay, just say sounds good.
And Jan A says good evening, Steve and Michelle. Good evening.
Good evening, Jan.
Good morning for us.
Good morning. It's morning for us. We've got a busy-ish day, but we wanted to go live anyway. Are we doing a video tomorrow?
Tomorrow there
should be a video up tomorrow. We're trying to keep it at the moment. I know we get a little bit in and out of sync, but we're trying to do Wednesday, Friday, Sunday on our time or on your time.
Somebody's time.
Somebody's time.
It's regular wherever it is.
Yeah, wherever we are.
James says yes, sound very good. Thank you, James.
Thank you, James. And the other message I had was about my lovely t-shirts. Somebody said, Tony actually asked if the t-shirts, do we get anything for them? We do. I think we rarely sell a t-shirt, but we do get a little tiny cut if you want a Share the Love t-shirt. They are available in the links in the description. So if anyone wants to support us still, we do have the Patreon, we do have the PayPal, we do have the t-shirts. Begging exercise over it.
All done, all dusted.
But thank you, and thank you for sending us that money again for you know who you are. I will cover it. I should have asked whether I can say your name or not, but I won't. But thank you for sending us, treating us to a meal as well. That was very sweet. So yeah, we were up in. You saw the Pondicherry video. I wasn't enamored by Pondicherry. It wasn't my favourite. For years, I've wanted to go to Pondicherry. I can't tell you how many years I've wanted to go there. Very disappointed. I've seen a lot of YouTubers putting up videos and they're just beautiful. I mean, you look at them and you think, oh, Pondicherry, what?
Nice.
Yeah, it looks so nice. And then when you go there, you can actually see where they're pointing the camera, and then you look back at it and they've got a little bit of soft music and they're pointing it at this bit, and you think, well, turn the camera, because down there it's just noise, and the reason you put the music on is because of the noise and the smells and the things. So it's a little disappointing, and I don't feel that I want to go down that avenue of just sort of flowering things up to make them look as pretty as possible, because what's the point? I just don't see the point. I personally am now very skeptical about almost any videos I watch. Nowadays, when I go on to watch a lot of the big travel channels, I'm very skeptical, because when you look at some places, there was one just recently that somebody did, a friend of ours did in Thailand, in an area we know to be quite, we know to be noisy and smelly and just the most aggressively grimy place that we've been to. And I'm not going to discuss it, but in any detail, because I don't want to sort of do any pointing. They made it look gorgeous. Now that's nice, but what I've realized is with those videos is they do us travelers a great injustice, because if you have high expectations when you go to a place, it really knocks you down. But if you have realistic expectations, it can lift you up, because you're not, when you step onto the streets of Pondicherry and you see you've got to watch where you're standing, because the floors are up and they look like the pavements the last time any maintenance were done to them were back in the 1950s, so they're sort of just crumbling, and you're trying to step over them, but then there's beggars everywhere on the streets, and smells are coming up through the sewers and things. If you've just watched a sort of advertisement style video, there was one girl, one young lady who did a Pondicherry video, and she made it very pretty. She sort of did, but then she actually said, to be honest, she put a little bit in there, to be honest, it's not as nice as I made it look, and I applauded her for it, but I wish we would all maybe be. Now I know that means that
you don't have to focus on all the terrible bits. There are some nice bits from it, but sometimes it's getting from A to B to get to the nice bits. It's not nice in between.
Yeah,
so.
And I took a bit of flack for the Oroville video as well, because I was a bit negative on it. But you see, it was the expectation. Everybody had told me that Oroville was the city of the future. It was the way everybody should be living. All around the world, this is an example of a sort of glowing. So when people sort of criticize me for being a bit down on it, you have to understand, if you don't know what it stands for, and you're being told that it is the shining light of how everybody should be living around the world, and you get there, you've been told that right the way up to the front door, and you arrive there and think, no, this is not the way people should be living. This is far from it. And in fact, I've been to many thousands of places where I would say are a much better example of how people should be living than this. That's the problem. You see, you've got that high raised it's like a movie, you go and see a movie, everybody in the world thinks it's fantastic, and you get there and think, oh, and then you find a little gem of a movie that nobody's spoken about, and it lifts you, because you think, oh, that's a great movie, I had no expectations. So what we're hoping to do, always have hoped to do from the beginning of our travel videos, is to show it a little bit more realistically. So any questions you want to ask about this trip?
Now, James says, you guys are awesome, by the way, love watching you on your travels.
Thank you, James.
That's nice to hear.
That's a really nice comment. So I know we've only got a fairly small following on the travels at the moment. Well, no, it's a big following of wonderful people, but we get some really positive comments. It's always positive, generally, always positive about the vicarious way people are enjoying the journey. I'm very critical of what I do. Michelle would sort of back that up. I used to struggle to put videos up with my face in it, never mind with content. So we're just doing the best we can, and we're trying to keep it as real. Now there's a funny little piece, not funny, that funny, but we've got a bit when we arrived in India that we haven't edited and put up. It's some really great video content, but I'm wanting to get you all up to date. So I'll probably put that stuff up in a more appropriate time, sort of when it's a bit more generic, because I want to get the videos that, like the videos that you're watching now, are close enough to where we are so that it's relevant. It's a bit harder, but it feels better for me.
Yeah, you're getting there.
Any questions? Get some questions rolling, and then we can get some topics. Oh, hang on, let me look at my notes.
Your notes. Well, Zara Abraham says, you guys really had fun. Glad you did it. That's in regard to Oroville. Ed Straker said, howdy guys. Actually, I'm always skeptical of any place that has villa in the name.
Aston Villa.
James says, I think you guys are very brave. David Blakely says, good evening.
Good evening, David.
Jamaican girl, hi Kelly, says, how is your beautiful couple? Good morning from the UK.
Kelly, how are you? Lovely Kelly, always there for us.
Gracie Kitty said, I miss because of a nappy new, make more.
Nappy new? Who's that?
Gracie Kitty.
Gracie, hi Gracie.
And Dirk Von Font says, glad you made it out of China when you did. Crazy good timing.
Yeah, do you know, a lot of people are saying now on the China videos, you know, get out of China, you know, you're all gonna die. And to be honest, you know, Kunming, where we were in that region of China, is over 2,000 kilometers from where the problems are. The problems in China have always originated since I was a small boy, because I lived in Hong Kong as a child, and we've lived there as adults as well for quite some time.
Just quickly, Ruth, yes, it is live.
Yes, Ruthie, it's live. Ask some questions. And we have always had Hong Kong flu. I don't know if any of you, the sort of slightly maturer members of the viewers, can remember there used to be Hong Kong flu, and it came out of Hong Kong every single year, and they tried to vaccinate you against it. It generally then became avian flu, because it quite often comes over. Look, if I could say anything to you about this hysteria that's running around the Hong Kong flu, or the new coronas, they give it a different name, but this is a variation of the same flu virus that came out with the SARS as well, is that this has been coming out of China for many decades. And it is a little bit to do with some of the hygiene levels in China, but I have my own personal theory, and then when I used to travel into China for business a lot, when I lived in Hong Kong, is that in that particular region where it always comes from, it's the Wuhan, it's Guangzhou, Shenzhen, this southern side of China, is they are very particular about hygiene in the wrong sort of ways in those areas. They drink a lot. Children from a very young age are treated with, I might get a bit controversial here, but I'm going to cover this very quickly. From a very young age, given antibiotics way too frequently. They were when we were there. I don't know if it's still the same, but I suspect very little change. They drink almost exclusively bottled water, and it's distilled water, not spring water or mineral water. So they grow up from a very young age with almost no, Hong Kong and South China was the first McDonald's in the world where they wouldn't eat the buns without gloves. So when they first opened up McDonald's in Hong Kong when we were there, it did almost no business at all until they realized they had to provide the locals with plastic gloves to eat the burgers with, because they didn't want to touch them. And that mentality runs very deep in that sort of that southern area of China, and possibly, you know, the mask wearing has become synonymous with that region. It's a very, from a young age, not ever getting any dirt on your hands and into your mouth, not getting any, building up any immunity, on top of the fact that they are constantly taking antibiotics almost as a, because you can get them over the counter, antibiotics you can buy in China almost without exception. Very weak immune systems. That way you have also a very strong farming community that actually is interacting with fowl and beasts at a level. They often have very weak immune systems, and these colds and these flu vaccines then transmigrate into the human population, and this is what's happened. It's happened year after year since I've been a child. So if you're worried about it, I would say if you want to see where the money leads, look where the money leads. It leads to the pharmaceutical companies that are going to make a killing out of this again. The stories, they do it every 5-6 years. They have the big stories. And I remember with the SARS epidemic, you'll hear in the news many hundreds of people dying, which is terribly sad and it's never a good thing. But if you look at the very end of the SARS epidemic and you look at the numbers of people that died, it was a tiny, tiny fraction. I'm talking less than a percent of the same amount of people that died, say, in the UK or America of the common flu. More people die, and it's almost always elderly and frail people. More people die from the common flu by tens, hundreds and hundreds of people throughout America and Europe die from the very common flu virus because they're weak and they haven't the strength. They haven't the strength to fight off those things. And almost exclusively with the SARS epidemic that killed a lot of people, it ended up being in its hundreds. Almost exclusively, it was people that were already weak because they were very young, or weak because they were very old, or weak in general. So when people ask me, what are you worried about it? I'm not truthfully worried about it. There will be a lot of people that will get this particular virus and they will fight it off. Not necessarily with antibiotics either, but they will fight it off because their bodies, it hurts the body always. A cold and a flu always hurts the body. So it really is a variation of flu, and that's my
David Blakely said, I've never had a flu shot in my life.
No, I've never had a flu shot in my life. I don't intend to really have flu shots. You catch the flu, and if
you're old or you're vulnerable, then maybe it's a good idea. But if you don't need it, you shouldn't.
And this is where these new viruses can be very dangerous. But if you do look at the statistics, there is a hysteria that goes along with this each time it comes out, and before long, the pharmaceutical companies are going to governments and selling them billions. And I tell you, on the last SARS epidemic, they sold them billions of dollars of vaccines, which then sit in storage centers and go out of date and then have to be thrown in the skip, because it happened last time. I got very animated about it last time. I have studied this in great detail, and I don't want to make the whole thing about it. But anyway, we're not worried about it. It's nowhere near us, and to be honest, there are more people with colds and flus around us than they're likely to be.
So Homesteader down under Australia says, hi Steve and Michelle, nice to see you doing a live stream.
Hi Michelle, it's Michelle from I guessed it was you, Michelle, because I remember, I know you had a different name some time ago, but I figured it was you.
And CEO Fifth Corner Records says it's good to see other parts of the world, especially when it's -20 here in Alaska. Thanks again for the real and unscripted videos.
Yeah, -20. I could do with a bit of that at the moment. No, not really. No, that's cold.
That'd be Fahrenheit, though, wouldn't it?
No, I think it's probably converting it out of politeness. That
cold.
would be about right.
It's
That's
cold.
But
so Ed says medicine and more very profitable businesses.
Very profitable, Ed, and let's not make this all. I won't make it all about it, but if you really want to know more about the SARS and whatever this new one's called, I don't even take much notice of it, to be honest. It is a variation of the flu, and it is one that's crossed over from people. But if you haven't heard everything I've said, you can always go back and listen. But about the history of the Hong Kong flu, as it used to be called, mainly because it used to come over the border into Hong Kong, because at one time Hong Kong was the only gateway into China, so it was always called Hong Kong flu, because the first evidence always emerged in Hong Kong, and we were living there as children. That Hong Kong flu came over every time. It was never a big issue. It was never a big issue until the media got hold of it, and it would be like, eventually it will be, so I don't know, the Peru flu or something. It'll be something coming over the border from a different area. Anyway.
So Dirk von Front says, so how's the awesome food over there?
The awesome food is good. I mean, it's interesting, Michelle. It's interesting. We found we love the South Indian food, but there's a very limited amount of food. The variety is quite limited by our palates. And you sometimes find yourself yearning for something different. Whether or not the North Indian food If we get up to North India, I'm not sure if we will on this trip, but generally fantastic. And I've learned a lot about the preparation of the dosa and the different appams and idlis and things. But there is a similarity. It's when you come here for a week or two, you may not notice it, but when you're here like we've been for 2.5 months, there is a sort of similarity between the dishes that are served between morning and the evening time, and it can get quite monotonous. So you do find yourself trying to sort of reach out for a bowl of cornflakes or something, just to break up that monotony. But I would say if you come to India for 2 or 3 weeks, or up to a month, you're going to love the food. You're going to love the food, but you will start to miss some of your home comforts.
So
That's the same everywhere in the world.
So Fabian's just saying, ciao, I have to work.
Ciao, Fabian.
Bye. Going flying. Ooh, nice.
So any questions? Scroll up and just have a little look.
I'll just have a little check. I think I'm getting up to date with everything.
For those of you that have just joined us, the thank you bit was the fact that somebody had sent us through PayPal. Well, firstly, they sent a lovely message saying, we absolutely love your travel videos. I've so much enjoyed them. Wanted to buy you lunch or buy you dinner, and they sent us a payment through PayPal. So that was really nice. Thank you. That was really quite uplifting.
Yeah.
It was uplifting because we were having a bit of a hard time. Let me tell you some stories, some videos you're going to see over the next 10 days. One thing we've been traveling all the way down the south of India. We decided to do it in small chunks because we didn't want to. We had that bus journey. I did a disservice on that bus video because I didn't finish it off properly and explain to you just how bad it was. I think it was like sleeping in a tumble dryer. It was just the most. You got to think between Bangalore and Pondicherry.
Forgot Owen.
Between Bangalore and Pondicherry, it felt like he was driving over plough fields. There was no roads at all. We were bouncing along, and we never, in an 8-hour journey, we never got a minute sleep. It was most uncomfortable. You weren't happy at all.
I had 3 tips when I got off the bus. The first thing is maybe take a pillow, because the pillows were sort of very, very small.
Pillow, really, was it?
Yes. My second tip is if you get a choice, don't sit at the front of the bus near the driver. Sit as far away from the driver as possible, because...
Please excuse this sound, right? Every 15 minutes, almost to clockwork, he's going like this, just in front of our bed. He's clearing his throat and spitting out the window.
Honking the horn.
And sometimes doing a Bollywood sing-song in the middle of nowhere. So that was just like, we weren't having a bad time, we were laughing, and actually, in a way, it was humorous, but we were exhausted. And your last tip?
Don't bother doing it.
Don't do it, no. I think I agree with Michelle.
It was an experience.
It was an experience to be missed. And we said to ourselves, well, if we're going to go down south along the coast, we're not going to do any long journeys. We're just going to do 3 or 4 hour journeys, because then it doesn't matter how bad it is, it's tolerable. As it happens, most of the journeys we've done in cars, taxis, they cost anywhere between sort of $50–60 each trip.
We think it's worth it.
But we think it's worth it.
We've looked at the trains, but then the trains quite often you have to go sort of, zigzag down, and it's really not.
Trains are good, and we've got a train video that I've got to edit, because I know a lot of you enjoy the train videos. Now we had.
James just asked. I was going to ask if anyone had anyone spit on your shoes. If you've had anyone spit on your shoes. Luckily, no. Not that we're aware of.
Probably on the bottom of them very frequently.
Yes, you do have to avoid that.
We do have a spitting problem, that used to be almost predominantly in China, and I do think that in China, that in some areas they're cleaning up on this now. In India, it's just, they're not. And certainly in South India anyway, there is a prevalence of spitting in the street. So you do have to watch. Well, not just spitting, to be honest. There's also other ablutions that are done in the street constantly, which you have to watch.
So just quickly, going back to the food here. So Ruth says it's like being in hospital, same menu every day. 2.5 months of that can get a little bit trying.
Yeah, the breakfast can get quite limited for us.
Yes, and Dirk Von Fon says, when you head home, will you be doing some dishes of what you've learned on the road?
Yes, when we get wherever home is.
Kitchen.
Yeah, when we we're making lots of notes, and even from our Mexican, European tours, Southeast Asia tours, we've learned a great deal. I do have to share that back with you at some point, but I've got all the notes and up here. One of the videos, we had a taxi journey. One of the taxi journeys down south was a bit of a disaster. It was arranged by the hotel we were in a few days back, and the guy turned out to be a complete rogue. This can happen. There is endless, like, we'd agreed a price very clearly. There was no ambiguous discussions going on. We're very clear on the cost, and it was meant to be all inclusive. And the guy halfway down wanted to change, put the price up, wanted to start charging for this and charging for that, and he got quite sultry and started going on about his children and how he was poor and all this, and it just became like an unpleasant journey, and that can happen. Fortunately, not too often, but it just made the whole long drive in the car just a little bit sour. He was a bit of a, insert your comments here.
So Gracie Kitty says, we enjoy your trip adventures.
Thank you, Gracie.
Jan A says, you and Michelle have beautiful smiles. Thank you, Jan. Well, Fabian was a pilot. That was the last one from him.
Yeah.
And what else? David Blakely says, come to Kentucky, you'll love it.
We already love Kentucky. I love all of that part of the US. Actually, some of my favorite parts of the world are in the USA, and we will get there. You know, we get a lot of invitations to come places. We can't do everything. We're touring around India at the moment and enjoying it, having some good times. Despite the fact that we talk about the negative sides, you know, a lot of spitting and pollutions in the street and the smells and this, that, and the other, the experience is still positive. You know, it does sound sometimes like you're maybe making things sound unpleasant, but then they you know, when you see something there, a beggar in the street, it is there. To say it's not there is effectively what I see sometimes a lot of local people do, is to ignore it as if it doesn't exist. And I think that is a problem in itself, when society actually turns a blind eye to any forms of poverty. I think that's actually a criminal offence. Sorry to sound so. I think that's a criminal offence by society. When you see such wealth, when you see such I remember when we were in Cambodia, in Phnom Penh, and walking down the streets of Cambodia, for example, it's not just India, and seeing people virtually living on the very fringes of existence. You know, they're so poor that a dollar would be worthless to them, because they cannot purchase things. They just have to eat off of what's there. And then a bright yellow, like this, Lamborghini drove up the street through the potholes and over the roads that were barely sort of able to, and I thought, you obnoxious creep. Words cannot escape me how unpleasant I feel about those people who have such wealth and flaunt it in these countries where they literally step over people in the street as if they are garbage, and that's not nice. Yeah. On a brighter note, look at that t-shirt. Look at the colour of that.
He's bright.
Like a canary.
Moon over Miami says, I appreciate you talk about pleasant and negative aspects.
Thank you, Moms.
And the Real Music Master says, thank you for sharing the love.
Thank you.
James McLean put in Chancer for your taxi driver, where you said instead of red.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
And Ruth says, what made you decide to travel like you do?
Good question, Ruth. Both Michelle and I have been a little bit sort of got travelling in our blood. Since we were children, we've always travelled. I suppose in a way, neither one of us has what we call a strong home base in so much as maybe Michelle a little bit more than I, but certainly I've never had a place that I call home. And I've always enjoyed traveling. I never feel more happy than when I'm in a foreign place, and I get very uneasy when I'm staying in the same place for any length of time. And we're very lucky that Michelle and I, we've been together since we were babies almost, so we're very lucky that we have the same wants.
Yes.
Yeah, so we're just I think if you've got a partner, or if you're on your own, but if you've got a partner and you both enjoy it, so we're just never happier than when we're traveling, even though sometimes traveling can be the hardest thing to do. For example, this last month has been quite hard for us. We don't want to sort of be Debbie Downer on travel, but there are times when it is really tough. Before we came to, you can see this rather nice room that we're in at the moment. It's got a nice big bed and ceiling fan and a bit of a balcony. So do you want to open that door and let the light in? And I've got a housemaid here that goes and does the door opening for me.
You wish.
No, the other one.
Oh, the other one?
Yeah, I'll push that back, right back.
Yeah.
Otherwise there's no light. So, we've got a nice balcony out there. Where was I going with this? A couple of days ago, my Lord, I mean, we were virtually, who asked? Ruth, was it?
Ruth, yes.
We were so close to the bottom of things. We'd gone to a little beach house. I don't think I filmed it. I might have filmed a little bit, but I was feeling that despondent, and we decided to stop in a hotel very unsimilar to this that had no air conditioning. It was on a beach side, had no air conditioning, and we arrived at this place, and it's full of tourists. Very pretentious sort of touristy area, a little bit like I imagine Goa to be. I'm not going to say the name of the beach resort, but
very captive, isn't it?
Very captive. All the prices, everything went up, double in price. Anything you wanted was double in price because the only shops nearby were all sort of controlled by locals. Very few, if any, hotels had air conditioning, and even if they had air conditioning, they were really daggy. I mean, really ugly, old, unkempt hotels. So we rocked up to a place that had quite good reviews, and we walked into our room, and everything was radiating heat. The pillows that were filthy, they were radiating warmth. The bedding, the floor, the walls, everything was radiating heat. It must have been 30, 32 degrees Celsius. And we were in that room, we thought, well, we've got to go to bed tonight. So we've got a fan turning around, and we're laying on this hard bed. They've given us basically a thin little sheet to put over ourselves.
It was one single sheet. We did have to ask for a second one.
So we had to ask for a second. The bathroom was as primitive as you can imagine it to be. And we lay there in the heat, trying to cool down. I was putting wet towels over us. I was trying to put, with the window, we had all the windows open, trying to blow the warm air out of the room. It was 2 o'clock in the morning. The room was still 30 degrees. We were sweltering heat. The humidity was high. We had the most awful night's sleep. Well, we didn't have much sleep at all. Woke up the next day and went to have a look at a few other places. I mean, it wasn't the people. It was good money. They were charging good money for this place. It was as much as this room that we're in now.
That was the thing, I think, because we thought, well, we're paying good money for this.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've stayed in places without air conditioning, and we can cope with it. It's we are a bit wussy sometimes, but we're not teenagers. We don't particularly want to live in the sort of be in the grass hut on the beach. But this place just didn't cool down. There was no cool air coming in.
And there was an American couple in the room next to us the next morning, and they had their window. I walked out. He's stark naked in his room, quickly draws his curtains across, because you can't close your curtains in these rooms
Because you don't get any air.
the air doesn't flow through. So he's there, and then we sort of started chatting, and I said, oh, how long are you here for? He said, we're here for 2 weeks. And I'm talking with his wife, and she said, when I arrived, she said I couldn't breathe in the room. I had like a panic attack because of the heat. I had 2 or 3 days where I was literally thought I was feeling so bad.
And they were working out how they could get out, weren't they?
Yeah, they were working it out, but they managed to acclimatise it, and they were skinny little things. They were yoga people. They were skinny. There was not an ounce of fat on them, so technically that means you dissipate. And I'm not saying that, you know, I'm chunky, so I hold the heat in more. So we got talking to them, and they said, oh, a couple came the day before to your room. They said because ours was on the far end of the building and got all the sun, and they said they stayed there one night and went off. They weren't happy at all. And I just thought to myself, why on earth are you staying here? Why have you got 2 weeks here? And it turned out that the whole resort, what was it called, Michelle? It was Covalent Beach. Covalent Beach, by the way, I cannot recommend it at all. Personally, I know a lot of people were having a good time there. Very much. There was actually a little thing we'd read from the lady that had owned the hotel that we were staying in. It had been owned by a foreigner at some point. She'd left. She'd had enough, and she'd written it was like Marbella or Benidorm. She obviously came from the UK. She said, if you're expecting India, you're going to get Benidorm, and it really is there are wealthy people by European standards have money, but wealthy people wouldn't choose to stay in these sort of resorts. If you had money, you wouldn't stay there. I don't know what people see in it really. There's nothing Indian about it. There was no Indian. There was no lovely Indian coffee makers making coffee.
No, we couldn't even find that, could we? Couldn't even find the local coffee.
Couldn't find coffee. Couldn't find. Now, where am I? I'm getting somewhere with this, Ruth. I am getting somewhere with this.
I hope so.
So we went to have coffee out. I literally couldn't drink the coffee somebody had produced for me. It was cost almost 3 times the cost of up the hill. I did say to the guy, where can we get some local food? And he said, well, you've got to go up into the town, and you have to get a tuk-tuk driver to take you up for 150 rupees, and a tuk-tuk driver to bring you back for 150 rupees. In a country where a nice masala dosa is between 60 and 100 rupees, to pay 300 rupees to go up to get it is just ridiculous. So you have to eat the stuff that's in the town, and the stuff in the town is not good, or it's quite good. There were some nice westernized restaurants that were selling food that was actually quite decent, but it was not Indian quality. It wasn't Indian food even. It was, so yeah, that was that. Anyway, Ruth, we sat there and we were at our wit's end. We were thinking, okay, let's see if we can get a plane somewhere cooler. We were going to Alaska. We were coming up to see -20. We were looking at flights out of India, and we were so exhausted that we booked another night. I said to Michelle, look, this American couple, the yoga couple, they've managed to do it for however many days they've been there. If they can do it, we can do it. So I went and I booked another night in this room, thinking that we were toughening up by now. And that night was just as bad. It was
even worse.
It was worse. It was worse. It was a hotter night. I think the room got even hotter.
We were in cold showers.
We were showering 3 times just in the evening, just to bring your core temperature down, and then have a little bit of moisture on your body. I was putting wet sarongs over us to try and keep the temperature down. So it isn't all beautiful.
I think as well, we've done a lot of like short stays, so we actually done a lot of moving. So when you keep moving constantly, and we haven't had very good hotels, let's say, on the trip down, really. They've been, not so good. So it sort of gradually was getting worse, and that was just the end of it, wasn't it?
Yeah, we find it in doing the smaller towns. We've really been to some quite amazing towns and quite plain towns, but we do tend to like to stay off the beaten track. The only thing we found, nobody really comes down this side of India. No, I mean, not by choice. And so,
well, they come to visit and then they leave. They come from their place.
yeah, but what I was getting at is that there's not a great tourist industry. So for instance, when we stayed in the place where we had the nice coffees and things, there's a small town. I'm working on the video at the moment for you. We stayed in the best hotel in the town, and it wasn't that good. You know? So it's not like the Ritz-Carlton is next door and we're staying in a cheap hotel. There aren't the options. I mean, in the town where we went to see the very famous pilgrimage churches here, the hotels were really poor. I mean, they're really poor quality, and so we had no other options. So at the end of this sort of like long and trip down to the south, to have this ridiculous hot hotel was just about worn us out. So we've come away from there. We've come into a nicer hotel, beautiful little place here. Just have a bit of downtime, catch up with you all, get some edits done.
Ruth's got to go, so she's saying bye.
Bye, Ruth. So yeah, that's the other side. As Ruth says, you know, what makes us travel? We travel for the good times, we travel for the good people that we meet, we travel for the good food and experiences. We travel because we're happier when we're traveling than we are sat, you know, in one place back home, you know, going through the daily sort of grind and the routine. You know, to me, it's hard for me to get up, go to the, you know, go to work, go to the shops, come back, watch TV, go to sleep. That's to me it's hard for me to do, for us to do. When I say me, Michelle and I have been together. Yeah,
the me is the royal we.
Yeah. We both feel the same.
So Graham Patterson says, finally caught you both live again. Loving your journey, so inspiring.
Thanks, Graham. And that's the sort of comments. I really do appreciate your comments. Sometimes I've got to. I know some of my long-time subscribers say, oh, I don't want to keep saying that was great on your comment, Steve, or they enjoyed it because of this, because it sounds like I'm just saying the same thing over and over again. I've had a few subscribers we've got close to say that. We don't mind you saying the same thing over and over again. We're quite happy, but I do understand for your own sake. Sometimes you don't want to just keep saying, but we do love to have the comments, and we do love to have any positive feedback. And if you can share the videos and you know, share the love, that would be great. And yes, I mean, there is a smaller audience now, because obviously the views are a lot less than they used to be when I was doing the cooking, that are still only wanting me to do the cooking videos. Cooking videos will come back at some point, you know, but this is the path Michelle and I are on at the moment. We're traveling, we're enjoying traveling around the world. We've got a lot more to do yet. We've got a really exciting thing to do in, you're going to love it, in later part of this year. I mean, you're going to love it, I hope.
Yeah, we're going to love it.
We're going to love it.
That's the only thing that's definitely.
Yeah, between now and August, September time, we're really on the flying by the seat of our pants. We're not sure where we will be, but August, September time, we have got a good idea where we will be, and it's going to be very, very cool.
So Sally Highfield says hi Sally.
Hi Sally. Hi Amy.
David Blakely says, time for a snack, a bowl of chicken soup.
Chicken soup. Sounds nice.
Blue Fly says, I love you. Steve, you're the best, love you.
Thank you very much.
RC says, wishing you two the best, please enjoy your trip.
We do. Last night we were walking along the streets and we saw the guy again frying up they fry these potato chips. They're actually not potato, they're tapioca chips. They're really hard. I'm not going to eat one now, it'll be crunching. You get a big bag. Michelle, this is a bag Michelle had. She's eaten most of them because she's greedy. You see them frying them on the street, fresh, you know, fresh in front of you. It's old school. sort of got it going through a mandolin. They're just grating them straight into the wok of coconut oil, and they fry them up and lightly salt them. The interesting thing is they add the salt into the oil, and it sticks to the French fries. Not French fries, potato chips. Crisps.
Well, we've tried the potato chips, but we actually prefer the tapioca.
The tapioca chips here are the best.
Delicious.
If you see a guy grating potatoes into the oil, it never tastes as good.
Yeah.
They do taste a bit more like our potato chips, but the tapioca ones, because there's a lot of, it's quite a very starchy type of potato, they fry up beautifully. Yeah, I like those.
And they do them in masala as well, but we just like the salt. I think we like.
I like the masala ones.
You do?
Yeah, I like the masala ones. They're a little spicy, a little bit like a paprika chip.
So David Blakey says, myself, I love to travel.
Good, David. I mean, we're lucky. We are lucky to do what we do. We don't do it with a great deal of wealth. A lot of people think we're super rich. We're not particularly super rich. We're just very frugal and careful with how we spend what we have. And we just would rather be doing this than being in one place at the moment. And that's just the way it is. And we've been traveling now for 5 years almost. Can you believe, since the Steve's Kitchen videos, when you were in my kitchen back in Australia and we were doing daily, all the cooking shows and things, we have been traveling for 5 years. So for us, that seems like a long time ago, and not so long ago, as some of you will remember. 5 years when? April.
Yeah. So Amy says, hi Steve, how are you? Amy Highfield.
I'm good, Amy.
And Gracie Kitty says, you're the Aussie Mark Green's food critic.
Look, Mark does a really good job at what he does, and we've looked and sort of thought, can we do what Mark does? He's got it down pat what he does. He loves doing what he does. I don't want to do that style of video. I don't have. Again, it's a tiger on your back sort of scenario. Whenever you start performing to a certain style, you end up stuck in that thing, and sometimes you can think. I've been to VidCon. That's my argument. I've seen a lot of these. A lot of producers that are doing stuff that look on the face of it to be having a ball, and when you meet them, if they're not happy, and also we've lived a life, we've lived a life, and we know that you can create your own beast. So we're trying to, we are just doing what we enjoy. But yeah, hats off to Mark. Mark's done exceptionally well.
So Gail Benjamin says, hi from Canada. I started following you when I came across a few of your cooking videos a few years ago. I'm completely content to watch your travel videos as well.
That's great.
That's what we like to do.
That's what we just feel there are enough people there that are content to watch the travel, and if we decide to go back into a more sort of bricks and mortar style lifestyle, and we do more cooking, it will happen. And can you imagine if we suddenly build up an audience of people that love the travelling, and I go back to the kitchen and I say, I'll get the same things, I'll get exactly the same. Yeah. When are you going travelling again? I want you to go travelling. It will not faze us at all. We love having everybody around us and followers but we're not performing seals to do something. And I think that's where a lot of the problems on YouTube, I see it with youngsters, it troubles me a little. I'd not say not that much, to be honest. I can't be troubled for everybody else, but it troubles me to see a lot of youngsters who are getting into this sort of social media lark, because they actually end up quite often, as I say, at VidCon, they're all depressed. Everybody's so depressed and miserable, and it generally comes from the fact that it's a hard thing to do, YouTube. I wouldn't really recommend it to many people. I've said in the past I might recommend it, but in fact I probably wouldn't, because you can do so much better in life by just being entrepreneurial and doing your own things. Certainly this is not a platform to make money on. This is not a place, and I know some people do make money for a short time, but it's hard, trust me.
But David Blakely says, is your wife got a bit of Irish in her background? Because you look a bit like my mum.
No, that's mahogany.
Stop it. No Irish. No Irish at all.
No. But you know, we're all from one big melting pot once you get into that part of, you know, when you come from the British Isles, it's a big melting pot of similar people.
So Lulan M says, I love you too.
Thank you very
As in
much.
number 2.
Thank you very much. So any questions? Run me some nice questions so I can just ramble for a little bit longer. And let me see if I've gone through all my notes. Yes, we were almost arrested trying to get drone footage for you. If you want to know about that, you'll have to watch the video from the beginning. I wanted to say thank you to the Patreons that follow us, which make a little bit of extra income for us to sort of, you know, enjoy this, that, and the other. I want to say thank you to Tony in the comments who wanted to buy a t-shirt. That's why I put it on today, Tony. If you do like to buy the t-shirts, I don't make a lot from the t-shirts, but they're there just for a bit of fun. And I want to thank my good friend and viewer that sent us some money through the PayPal, and I'll put the PayPal link down below if anybody wants to do that. I want to thank them for saying that they love the stuff we're doing and they wanted to buy us dinner, and we will do a video when we get somewhere really cool, and we will definitely using that money to have a special dinner together. And that was the main thing. So was there any questions?
I'll check.
What have we got coming up? We don't really know 100% what's coming up. We're debating where we're going to go now. We've covered a great deal of South India, and we're sort of debating whether to go north or to go somewhere else. Yeah, I wouldn't mind doing another train journey in India, but it's not always easy.
Now, sometimes getting the trains can be a bit difficult.
We went yesterday. We walked to the train station yesterday, and it was a bun fight. There was a little tiny. There was one window, some old wires and dust and dirt, and right at the level of your head was a big metal bar that you had to lean and sort of, and you're shouting through, "Can I get a train to North India?" That is through the window, and they sort of talk back. And you think, I can't even hear you, for crying out loud. I'm very intolerant of this damn nonsense, you know. And I'm thinking, why have you got one customer service counter at this station? It's beyond chaos. I mean, at these other stations, it is beyond chaos. I mean, if you leave a gap this wide, somebody will step in front of you and start going and just shouting through the same thing. So you have to sort of sit your arms out like this, saying, I want to know if there's a ticket to so-and-so,
and at the end of the day, you ask the information and they go through the same stages that you've trawled through on the internet to find out what's available. They seem to just do the same. They don't have an easier system.
No, they don't have any knowledge, and so you're stood there and this is a sort of big central station. You're stood there at the thing showering through a dirty old grill. One of the things that have always troubled me in India is, and I used to get this from some of my Indian friends, is you know, they say when the British were here, things were a lot better, and sometimes they say, I wish the British were still here. Is that a lot of the things here in India that were handed back to India in the 1950s have not been touched. They haven't modernized or done any maintenance even on these places in the sort of 60 odd years that the British have left. So you go to some of these railway stations and you can see that back in the 50s they were probably beautiful modern stations by their time standard. I mean, in the 50s, not by these standards, not by today's standards. And they're like the stations from 1954, but they haven't had a lick of paint or cleaned a window since the 1950s. So you go to these places and you're trying to sort of scream through this because there's noise. Everybody around this side of the counter, everybody around you shouting. So there's noise. And then you're talking through a perspex slot in a sort of like chicken wire fence that they put around at a lady on the other side, who then sort of talks back to you, and our voice doesn't come through, so you're trying to put your ear up against the thing to get something. I think there was one window, a guy did have a little speaker which he kept holding to his mouth like a little lav microphone, and there was a speaker coming out sort of announcing to the whole audience what you were asking. So that was, but he was hopeless. He had no information at all.
No.
He just said, basically, he said, "Go upstairs."
Oh, and that was
all right.
then
we'll
we
go
finding
upstairs.
upstairs was difficult.
And then going upstairs was next to impossible. So that was hard work. We were thinking of doing a train journey. We actually came away from there a little bit frustrated. I mean, the girl at the counter didn't even have a mouse. I couldn't see her computer. It looked like something from the 1980s, and I suspect it was running a DOS operating system, because she had no mouse and she was having to do everything on the keyboard. And everything we said, well, is there on this date, is there a train to North India on this day? And she enter, control, delete, control, shifts, and she's going like that, and eventually she'd sort of go, she wouldn't look at you the whole time, she'd sort of go, you go, what? And you think, so there's only two seats on the 12th. Oh, all right, yeah. And you think, oh, just go away, it's not worth it. So we came away from the station completely disheartened, decided maybe we won't go on the train. That's still a possibility though. I'd like to do a train journey. But these things knock you, you know. I see people sometimes, if I had anything to say, if you come to India, I actually would do a tour group.
Well, not only that, maybe plan, because we're here and we say, okay, we want to go to this place and we want to go maybe within the next week. You're not going to get train tickets for decent seats in the next week. It just doesn't happen. So if you're going to come to India, maybe you need to say, okay, I'm going to go here, here and here, and this is how I'm going to get there, and actually book what you're going to do.
I think the problem is, and another friend of ours on one of the subscribers and friends alluded to this, is the trains here in India are quite interesting. I wouldn't say they're good, but they're interesting, and they're reasonably clean, and they're quite. I think they're a nice way to travel, but the population in India has skyrocketed over such a short time. There are too many people for the services, so it's hard to get a seat. If you want to get a seat, you've got to book quite often way in advance, and that's not an easy way for travellers. You know, if you're backpacking or you're travelling around, you don't really want to always plan 10 days ahead because we've got to, like, the only time we could find an air condition for a 16-hour train journey, the only time yesterday we could establish that we think there might have been an air-conditioned sleeper, because I don't really want to do what we did the other day on a train, a hot fan journey for 16 hours in this heat. Seemed to be about sort of a week and a half from now, and even then we're not sure if
it's about the 12th.
Yeah, they can't turn the screen to you and let you pick out your seats.
I don't think we'd have probably
your seat would be
together.
like that, and the other seat would be so you could get on and find yourself on anything virtually, and that's not because there aren't the trains, because journeys are going all the time in India. I think it's just the numbers. I think there's just too many people, and they possibly.
They do a lot of this where you can book an unconfirmed ticket.
Yeah.
We don't want to do that.
No, but who wants to rock up to a railway station? The problem is, you see, if you're local. Firstly, if you're local, you've got no jobs, no responsibilities whatsoever. You can go there, and if you're lucky, a seat becomes available. You jump on and go. If you don't, you go back home. Mum makes you some breakfast, and you go again tomorrow. But you see, if you're travelling, you've got to check out your hotel. You've got to drag all your bits up to the thing. You're on a wait list system, and there's a good chance you'll get it. But there's a chance you won't get it, and if you don't get it, then you've got to drag your backside all the way back into the town where you've just come from and find hotel and accommodation.
So we've both got to get it.
Yeah.
It wouldn't work. We couldn't do that.
Okay,
So Amy Highfield says, love your live videos.
Thanks, Amy. Sorry we haven't done any for a little while.
Yes.
We the last one we did, the quality for me was just so poor.
You've tried a few times, haven't you? Just
I've done,
private ones.
I do some private ones.
Oh,
What I do is I go out and I set up a private video and I go around and Michelle watches it back in the hotel room, and then we watch it together when I come back. And it's so grainy that I just think it doesn't add. I want to show you things, you know, I want to show you the streets and show you the sounds and things. And if it's too grainy, there's no point. You know, there's not any.
That's why we're sat here, not moving around.
Yeah, the reason I know that if we're not moving and the pixels are not sort of shaking around, you'll see if I sort of go like this, if the pixels are not shaking around, that the picture should stay fairly decent and we can have a conversation. It's not too hard on your eyes.
David Blakely says, if you come here, I'll fix your dinner. Thank you, David.
Thank you, David.
Very nice. Moon over Miami says, are border crossings easy and swift or have delays and problematic?
Border crossings are generally fairly easy and swift, but let's say, for instance, if we went from here to a border, say for Pakistan, the crossing actually isn't that difficult. In other words, there's some fees to be paid, some paperwork, some form filling, and what have you. It's not like in Europe, maybe, where you just sort of can drive between two countries without any real checking at all. So no, I think crossing in most countries.
Just sorting out, make sure you've got the right paperwork, like visas.
Yeah.
So if you've got everything in place, then that's generally okay, isn't it? So.
As I've said many times in the past, though, the actual bit I don't like about travelling, the bit I could completely never do again in my life, is the travelling bit, the flying between countries. So actually, border crossings, they're never too difficult. For example, when we went between Thailand and Cambodia by bus, was it Thailand and Cambodia?
Yeah, by bus.
No big issues, but the experience wasn't pleasant. You know, when we went from Thailand into Malaysia, no real issues, but who wants to stand in a queue for an hour and a half and then be sort of like, you know,
the bus
treated like a naughty school child by some real sort of pugnacious idiots at the border?
Yeah.
You know, who wants that? So no, they're not hard. Are they pleasant? You wouldn't want to do them, you know, 7 days a week.
No.
Any other questions about travel? We do have to do the gear we carry, because I think Michelle and I actually take it for granted. We travel very light. You know, we've been 5 years and we rarely turn up to any place where people have less luggage than us. And we're carrying all sorts of camera gear and sound gear and laptops that most people don't have to travel with. And we've still only got 2 small bags, one small check-inable bag and a second small check-inable bag, one which we generally check even though it's quite small. So we do have to do a video at some point about how to travel light, because we never feel we're missing anything, do we?
No, I mean, we've got lighter and lighter as the years have gone on.
Yeah, we're still carrying stuff that we shouldn't carry, so that's a video. Our bags are great. Our Osprey bags that we take with us have just done phenomenally well. They're very well made bags. Highly recommend Osprey. We are a sort of ambassador for Osprey, but it's not for that reason. We chose Osprey.
Yeah, we chose Osprey
way before they asked us to be an ambassador for their bags. So we must do a video. I think we both are at the stage where we could do with a stop somewhere. We haven't found a town really that we like enough to stop in. We're going to stop for a week or so here, just to edit what we've done in the South Indian leg that we've just completed. And yeah, we've probably not found a town that we're comfortable to stay in for a month or two as it is, but we could really do with a stop now. Where we'd probably prefer to be somewhere a little cooler. Don't really want to be in this heat all the time, because you know I like to walk in the daytime, and some parts of South India it's not that practical because it's just too hot. So there's this whole chunk of time in the day between sort of 10 and 3 where it's just
later than that.
Yeah.
It's very hot.
Where it's just sweaty and hot all the time. So we're looking for a stop. We're looking for a place. That's always a challenge, finding an apartment or somewhere we can rent for for a month, 2 months, 3 months. We don't really mind. We're very flexible. If it's nice, we might even stop there for 2 or 3 months. Might have a bit of exploration of one area. And as I say, we've got a really cool thing planned for August, September. Actually, it's for September, October, but it will start around late August, which I think you're going to love. We're going to love. And in between, there's definitely going to be other things happening. So I think we'll probably wrap up unless anyone's got any questions.
No questions coming in that I can see.
All right.
Well over the hour.
So don't worry about asking questions after the event. We'll keep an eye on the comments. We're going to get off. We've got a few things planned for today. Love to you all. We'll try and do another live stream this week while we're stopped here, so it'll probably be in the same location. And some good videos coming up. I've got videos up tomorrow, Friday and Sunday, or 3 videos a week if I can at the moment. And it's all to do with what we've just been talking about, the tour that we've just been doing down the south. So love to you all. Take care. Share the love. Share the love. And Michelle and I will see you on the road and in the next video. Love to have your comments. Be good. See you next time.
Bye.